Okay, welcome back. So we have just sifted the flour. As I said in the other video, I do sift my flour to get the bigger pieces of grain and, German bran out of it. But I've now measured out 540 grams of the flour, and I'm going to add to it 360 grams of water. Now this is room temperature water. It does not need to be warm in order to do an auto lease. So if I add 360 grams to that 540, we're going to end up with a total of 900 grams between flour and water. The trick is to go slow because you want to get right on the dot as close as possible. If you go over, that's okay. If it's not by too many grams, then you can just leave it. If you go over, I would say if you go over 5 grams of water, I would just add like a couple of grams of flour to it. Perfect. All right, so we're at 900. It's fluctuating back and forth between 900 and 901, and that's okay. We know it's about 900. Since it's fluctuating back and forth, that means it's between those two, okay? So I'm gonna take it off my scale. I'm gonna start out with a spoon to mix this, but it is going to get to the point where my spoon is no longer going to do it for me because I need to incorporate all of this dry flour. Okay, so I'm going to start out with this spoon, get it mixed up as much as possible. And this is where I would say if you don't want to get your hands dirty, buying some of those blue plastic gloves that you see some people wearing in their cooking videos, because you are going to get your hands in here. And you need to, because how will you know if your dough feels hydrated, or I should say if it feels incorporated, if you're not feeling it, if you're just going by looks, okay? So if you're not afraid to get your hands dirty, then by all means, put your hands in the bowl and start mixing. Now, you want to squeeze your dough. That's why I meant about getting your hands dirty, because you want as much of that flour to get in to that dough so that it can start absorbing that water when you leave it to rest. I do use my spoon to scrape the dry off the sides. You want every bit of that dry into that dough. Okay, so I've seen some of you and some people on some of the other fresh milled sites talking about how when they do this, their dough seems so dry and they feel like they need to add more water, or they do end up adding more water. And then later in the process, they wonder why their dough is collapsing or it's not feeling right later in the process. Okay, so to kind of help you understand what it should look like at this phase, okay, this is very dry dough. Like you can see it crumbling off, okay? That's very dry. That's actually how it needs to be when you start it, because that bran and germ hasn't absorbed that water yet. So there's no reason why it should feel smooth and elastic and any of that right now. Can you see that? It's literally, and it tears and breaks. We're not doing anything at this point except mixing it in. So we got it mixed in. See, all the flour is gone. Still a bit dry. Drop that in there. We're gonna cover it up. Let me get the lid. Make sure that you're covering it with a solid lid like this or plastic wrap. You don't want to put a towel over it because you're trying to get the dough to absorb water. You're not trying to pull water out of the dough. So if you put a towel on top of it, that towel in essence is going to pull the moisture out of the dough, and it's not going to absorb into your bran and germ. So we're going to leave this sit, and I will come back and show you the next phase where we incorporate our yeast and all of our ingredients into our Autolyse, and you'll see what the dough should look like after about 60 minutes. I'll see you then.